I'm ready. Good afternoon, or good morning, everyone. Welcome. How's everyone today? Good. Well, thanks for coming to Busse Talks 2024. From my understanding, most of you know I'm new. My name is Antoinette Francher-Donald. I'm an assistant professor and director of experiential learning. So all of you in the School of Business will meet me one day because I will be teaching your internship classes. So from my understanding, Busse Talks ended early 2020 because of COVID. And so we wanted to bring them back to give all the students an opportunity to engage with folks from the community who have lived and a lot of experience in the work world. So a few housekeeping items. There is pizza and water out there for you. KB Sobel, we are going to raffle some items such as gift cards and some cups and a few other things. So when you scan one of the QR codes out in the lobby on the windows or a table, please be sure to put your name in one of the boxes. We didn't have a name for the student, so put your name in the box so that we can raffle your name later and let you know. Go ahead and put your email address in too, because it'll be easier than for us to find you. Our guest speaker is going to speak for 30 minutes and then have a Q&A. So please be kind and ask some questions because this is a time for all of us to learn. So I will go ahead and I'll get started. I will give you a short bio of our presenter, Tony Donald. And I will be transparent, Tony Donald is my husband, so I know a lot about him. So I really shouldn't have to read off the script, but I'm going to anyway. He is the Director of Continuous Improvement at Industrial Magnetics Incorporated in Boyne City, Michigan, a company focused on providing permanent and electromagnetic solutions for the world. He has been an operations and supply chain professional with 30 years of experience, focused on manufacturing and supply chain excellence. His primary focuses are building strong teams so that they can optimize efficiencies, leveraging synergies, and also changing cultural paradigms. He has served in the U.S. Army as a tanker, and he's worked for worldwide organizations such as Whirlpool, where he helped to manage a $5 billion unit dishwasher, washer, and dryer division. Tony has been a consultant and he worked for General Electric for nearly 11 years. He has also worked at worldwide organizations Howden and ABB. His education, certification, and training include a Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Technology from Illinois State University. He is Six Sigma Green Belt and Six Sigma Black Belt trained and certified. He is also Lean Manufacturing trained and certified, world-class manufacturing training and certified. He has an APIX certification, and he is presently earning a plant manager, environmental and health certification through OSHA. Tony says that these are not his most impressive accomplishments. Those would be being married to his wife for more than 30 years and the 2 daughters that we have together. Mr. Donald's management styles are candid, inclusive, and he likes to win. And I know that because I've lived with him for 33 years. So, with no further ado, please welcome Mr. Donald.
Thanks, Antoinette. Good morning, everybody. I'm trying to decide whether I need to wear my glasses or not, so I won't. Let me just for housekeeping, let me see if I can control this. And I will go back. Yep, so that works. Yep, so I figured out. So, one, I just want to say thanks for St. Francis for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you today. Some of the things that I'm going to discuss is just pretty much to share my particular journey. And so what I'm going to do is give an introduction relative to my journey and where I grew up, how I grew up, things that my parents wanted me to focus on as I was growing up as a young kid, The other one is I'm going to give a little background relative to the evolution of corporate America. I spent a lot of time in corporate America for the last 30 plus years, started in the early 90s and currently working in it currently today. So just kind of want to give a little flavor relative to how it's transitioned over the last 30 years, and then what skills I think today's employees need to be successful as they navigate corporate America today. And then I'll end with a conclusion and then questions at the very end. So I'll start with my journey, right? So I say this saying all the time: people only know where you are, they don't know where you come from, right? When you see someone, let's say the person who runs McDonald's, most people see him as the CEO of McDonald's, but most people don't know that he was an hourly employee that worked at McDonald's, right? So he spent some time flipping burgers like some of us, and I raise my hand like me as well. And through the course of years, working hard and with a plan, he became the CEO of McDonald's. You only know where he's at today, right? You don't know where he comes from. You see me today up here on the stage, and Antoinette gave my bio relative to where I worked and some of the organizations I've worked for. Some of these organizations during the course of my time were, I'm going to call them Fortune 5 companies in the world. They're the 5 largest companies in the world that I've worked for. Only know where I'm at, don't know where I come from. So I'm going to give you an idea of where I actually come from. As you can see up there, a little blurred, but I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. When I tell people that I'm from East St. Louis, most people say, "You're from St. Louis." And I say, no. I'm where, when you go to the top of the arch and you look across the Mississippi River, that little dark town, that's East St. Louis, and it's actually in Illinois. Population, when I was in East St. Louis, the population was about 53,000 people is what the population was. And as you can see by the population chart today, in 2021, it's 18,000 people. So it's a population where people are constantly moving out of the city. The demographics, it's predominantly black, is the demographics, right? It's probably less Caucasian people live in East St. Louis today than there was when I grew up in East St. Louis, right? People think about crime. What does the crime look like in East St. Louis, right? If you read the statistics, it says 1 in 26 people in East St. Louis today could be vandalized or are going to encounter some type of violence during the course of their lifetime. 1 in 26. Does anybody know what it is in Fort Wayne? It's 1 in 37, so it's lower. It's lower. When you look at the homicide rate, population of 21,000, last year I think they had somewhere around 28 or 29. Do you know how many homicides we had in Fort Wayne last year? We averaged 32, population 300,000 people, right? Not 21,000, right? The school system, which hasn't changed very much from when I was growing up there, right? It's ranked in the bottom third in the nation. Think about that. It's ranked in the bottom third of the nation. I was looking at my daughter's school. She goes to Carroll School. They're ranked in the top 10% in the state of Indiana. It's a far cry relative to the type of resources a school like Carroll would have than a school like East St. Louis Senior High School. Most people know them because they can say they went to 10 state championships. That's why most people know them. Most people know them because of Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Brian Cox, who played football. Most people know those particular Olympic athletes and NFL players who grew up in actually East St. Louis. These are my earliest childhood memories. The gray house is, I was probably 5 years old. We lived on the top section of that particular house. Fondest memory there was getting up early one Christmas morning, grabbing a kitchen chair, scooting it by the light, standing on the chair and turning the light switch on for Christmas is the fondest memory that I have growing up in that particular house. And oh, by the way, back then, I was probably 4 or 5 years old at the period of time, and we lived with my grandmother. And my grandmother had 11 kids. And of those 11 kids, I guarantee you, 8 of them still lived in that house right there with us, along with my mother. My mother had 2 kids. She had my brother when she was 16, and she had me when she was 17. And 3 days later, she turned 18 years old. It's only 2 of us. Don't feel sorry for my mother. My mother graduated from college and has a college degree. So don't feel sorry for her. But that was the plight that she had, right? I also like to remind people, in 1960, you still could get married at 13 years old, too, as well. So you just remember that. So it's a different time and place. The school that I went to was a Garrison Elementary School. These pictures I took on one of my trips back home probably about 10 years ago, just trying to go through my old, where I grew up as a child, just trying to reminisce on memories that I had, and so I took these particular pictures of that. The themes out of my childhood, from my grandmother to my mother to uncles and cousins, because they knew we were poor, they would always say, don't stay here. You got to leave here as soon as you can. Ain't nothing around here. And the word is ain't. When I was a kid, they say ain't a word. But in my neighborhood, they use ain't all the time, right? And don't trust people as far as you can throw them, right? That's an endearing, I don't want to say an endearing term, but it was a term, and I'm just sharing, right? That was a term that when you got out into the world and you come in contact with, I'm going to use the Caucasian people, sometimes it's hard to trust them. It's time and place, right? Because you never know who's going to be in your favor, who's not in your favor, right? So I grew up with all these things tossing and turning inside of me relative to who I should trust and who I shouldn't trust. But I can tell you today that I've had many of mentors: black, green, yellow, white, brown, purple, women, kids, plenty of mentors through my careers to help me to get to where I'm going. The other themes were get an education, keep your head down and work hard, right? My parents didn't know that there was something in that term, keep your head down and work hard, and hopefully someone will notices you. Most of us, we have this moment, it's called the moment of high influence. Do anybody know what the moment of high influence is? World Trade Center got bombed. The World Trade Center got bombed. The only phone that worked was a BlackBerry. It was BlackBerry's moment of high influence, right? It was a moment that people will remember, that all of a sudden the only cell phone that would work was a BlackBerry. Most people don't use BlackBerries today. They missed their moment of high influence, right? But when you start a new job, you have this moment of high influence where people are looking at how you work, how you engage with people. They're looking with how you conversate, how you communicate. And during these moments, they're assessing you. And they're trying to decide, is that someone that I want to work with for a long period of time? Is that someone that I want to promote? Does that person share some of the same values that I have? Can they help me achieve and get to where I'm going? Because no one gets to where they're going alone. We all have plenty of people that are helping us and pushing us along the way to get to the journey that we're actually on. So what I did is I did exactly what they said. I got out of East St. Louis, kept my head down, and I worked hard, right? I got out of East St. Louis. I went to school at Illinois State University the first time, so people don't know that it's not a multitude of successes. I went there for about 1.5 years, and then I left and I went to the Army. Spent a couple years in the Army doing Desert Storm, went to Korea, a couple other places, got out, went back to the University of Illinois and spent another 2.5 years going to school all year long, summers included, just to get my degree. And out of that, I was working at General Electric at the time. And so that's how I got my foot in the door at General Electric. And it was more of what I said, plenty of people along the way noticing you and noticing how you interact. And someone says to me one day, who was the plant manager at GE, and I like to share these terms. People say plant manager today, and the plant manager today is more like a supervisor. When I was growing up in the 1990s, a plant manager was someone who ran the plant. They were over marketing, they were over sales, they were over the plant. They had a huge influence across the organization, was a plant manager when I grew up. So when I started my flight into manufacturing, I wanted to be a plant manager is what I wanted to be. And so that was the course of action that I actually started. So then I can speak a little bit around the evolution of corporate America. Does anyone know what the S&P 500 is or the Fortune 500 is? Raise your hand. Somebody know? That's right. It's the largest 500 companies in the United States, and that's by revenue, not by market cap. Most people, when they think about market cap, they'll say Tesla is the biggest company in the world, or Apple is the biggest company in the world. That's only by market cap. That's not by the sales they actually generate, right? And so when I was growing up, when I was growing up, it was more around the Fortune 5. And so I want to talk a little bit about the Fortune 5. If you look at 1990 to 2000 and to 2010, the majority of the Fortune 5 were manufacturing companies. So the U.S. had a huge manufacturing base that spanned through that time period, right? And if you look at some of the companies, and people say, well, ExxonMobil, that's an oil company. It's a process-based business. I used to work for Sunoco Petrochemical Company in Toledo, Ohio. It's a process-based business. It was the only place in my life, and I'm sharing this, the only place in my life where I realized there's people that make more than the auto workers. And I mean the hourly employees there. They made quite a bit of money, but it's a process-based business. And so whenever you pass by a refinery and you see the fire coming from a smokestack, and it's pretty at night and those types of things, it's only pretty for the people that see it from the outside. Seeing the fire that comes out of a smokestack at a refinery is not a good sign at all. There's actually an emergency or something that's happening at a refinery when you see a fire. But it's a process. ExxonMobil is a process-based business, but still, it was one of the largest companies in the world. Still is today. If I fast forward to where we are today, and you look at what the Fortune 5 companies are, you see it's Walmart, Amazon, Exxon, Apple, and United Healthcare. Are there any themes in those companies for you? No? These are all technology, healthcare, and service-based businesses. If you think about since 2010, it's been this huge thing that started to transform us, and it's called the digital transformation, right? And so these particular companies have started to transform the way we think, the way we operate, the way we engage, the way we interpret transformation, the way we read the newspaper. Just by a show of hands, if you use any social media website more than 4 times a week, and that's LinkedIn included, I want you to raise your right hand. All right, keep your hands up. If some people don't know what the Internet of Things are, tell me, keep your hand raised, raise your left hand if you use Bluetooth. So I'm gonna raise my left hand. If you use Bluetooth, you use Alexa to tell you to turn on your radio, raise your left hand. That's the Internet of Things, right? And then if you've used AI in any form, whether it's Bart, ChatGPT, I want you to stand up. Oh, and you can put your hands down and have a seat. The Internet of Things is fastly transforming how we view the world. I mean, AI is the new buzz, right? But AI's been around for a long period of time. If you think about Watson, 10 years ago when Watson came out, most people don't know what IBM does, do you? Do anybody know what IBM do people know what IBM do for a living? Does anybody here know what IBM do for a living? What do they do? They do computers. No, they don't make computers anymore. They sold that to Apple, but that is a good one. I'll be honest, I don't know what IBM does, but they generate a lot of revenue and a lot of money. And I say that to say they're one of the few companies in the world that works with the government. I don't have anything behind it, but they work with the government, and they do a lot of infrastructure, and they have a lot of technology behind it. IBM is one of the forerunners in artificial intelligence, outside of Google, Microsoft, ChatGPT. The other thing that's transforming us is a lot of people want to work from home. Raise your hand if you want to work from home. There's a lot of people want to work from home. They think their ideal job is working from home because it gives them an opportunity to have a lot of flexibility to do some of the things that they can't do. But the one thing that's missing in a work from home environment, it's hard to build culture when you work from home, especially when you're new. It's hard to show someone or engage someone in regards to how the company really operates. Who are the key people that can help you in a crisis? How do you communicate with people when it's only bits and pieces of 2 hours of time doing on Teams or Skype or those? It's hard to build culture when you do that. I'm not against work from home. I don't want you to think that that's what I think. I think that sometimes it has to be a hybrid of that, because at the end of the day, we all need a social network to connect with, right? And it's hard to do that when everything's done digitally, and there's no real human interface that comes along with that. The one thing that the digital transformation is going to change, at least in your lifetime, is going to change the number of jobs you have in your lifetime. Someone I want 2 guesses of how many jobs you'll probably have in your lifetime. What do we got? 5. 5 jobs? How many? 4. 30. Close. They said the Gen Zer will have 17 jobs in their lifetime. When I was growing up and I was working at GE, and I was part of it, coming from a generation where you worked at one job for 30, 35 years and you retired, and somebody told me, and this is in 2020, that I would have 7 jobs in my lifetime, and I had already been at GE for 8 years, I said, that's impossible. So that's impossible, right? But I've probably had 7 jobs in my lifetime. Jobs, careers, and the average person is going to have 5 to 7 careers out of that. A career spans 3 to 4 year time period of time, right? I was an hourly employee for a period of time when I worked at GE. I was a second shift supervisor. I was a manager of shop operation. Those were all careers that I actually had within that organization. But they say Gen Z is going to have job mobility and not job security. Think about that. Job mobility and not job security. What comes if you don't have job security? Does anybody take a guess? What happens when you don't have job security? Yep, you get fired, right? But you may choose to leave too, as well. So there may be some security in that. It's going to be, if you don't have job security, you're going to have change. A lot of change. And so what comes with change? Anybody have any answers? You got to speak a little bit louder, but comes with change is the first thing that comes, right? When you get fired is you have this sense of uncertainty, right? Then, because you got fired, there's some stress that comes along with that, and then there's setbacks also that come along with that, potentially, if you're not prepared for it, right? The one thing that it causes for sure is that level of uncertainty. You know, when I came to work in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I was promoted off the shop floor. This is the honest to God truth. When I worked at GE, I was an hourly employee for 5 years. I had gotten my degree. When I came to Fort Wayne, I left Bloomington, Illinois, making widgets on the shop floor, coming here working on a Monday at the transformer plant downtown, and I was managing people on second shift. And the only thing that I could think at that time, because of that huge transition, is they're gonna fire me. I had so much uncertainty because I went from making widgets on a shop floor to someone thinking enough of me to saying, hey, here's 35 people I want you to manage on an off shift. And so there was a lot of uncertainty, scared. My first interactions with corporate America is what I'm gonna call it. And keep in mind, I came from East St. Louis, right? The majority of people that I was encountered with looked like me. Very few minorities that I even, not in minorities, very few Caucasian people that I actually engaged with during that period of time, other than going to college, right? So come here and then you have all those perceptions. So I came with this baggage to this new job, right? Can't trust people as far as you throw them. I came with this baggage to this new job, and so it took me a little while to kind of throw some of that baggage off, but it took mentors for me to get through that. It took, when I say mentors, most of them Caucasian, helping me through that particular process. You know, when I asked the question to my plant manager in Bloomington, Illinois, why me, right? He says to me, why not you, right? And he's someone that you didn't think, I didn't know what my sphere of influence was. He's someone that I didn't think noticed me whatsoever. But when he came to me and said, if there was a job someplace else, would you take it? And I said, yes. Within 3 weeks, I had a job, and that job was here in Fort Wayne. And that's what happens when you have a sphere of influence, and people are looking at you, and they say, that's someone that can help this organization. So that's why you got to be mindful of working hard. Skills required for success. The first one, since you guys are going to have 17 jobs in your lifetime, is adaptability, right? You have to have the ability to adapt to the changing situations and circumstances that you're going to inquire. Some of them will be due to you, and some of them will be due to a fault not of your own. But you have to have the ability to adapt. Resilience. Right? Resilience says that you can knock me down, but I can get right back up and I can keep moving. You gotta have it, right? Because you're gonna be knocked down multiple times during the course of your journey, multiple times during the course of your studies. But you have to continue to think, where am I headed and where am I going and what tools do I actually need to get there? The other one is teamwork. No one gets there alone. We all have a team. No one gets there alone. There's no one out here that can raise their hand and simply say, no one helped me to get to where I'm at. Even the people that said I got kicked out at the age of 16 or something. There's people that'll say that, but no one helped me. Someone had to help you get from point A to point B, even if they gave you knowledge to help you get there. Someone helped you get there. This other one that's a big one is emotional intelligence. Does anyone know what emotional intelligence is? Anyone know what emotional intelligence is? You express it, you feel it, right? It's how you are in tune with your emotions, self-awareness. How do you deal with moments where you're frustrated, moments where you have anger, moments where you're hurt, self-aware of the conversations you're having with people, hand-body coordination, not coordination, hand-body gestures. Being self-aware when you talk to other people. Emotional intelligence was something not very practical in the 90s and even the first part of the 2000s, right? But today you have more and more companies that are looking to build their teams around people that have emotional intelligence. People that can be empathetic. People can look at a situation and they can simply say, hey, how would I feel if I was in their shoes? There was a point when, like I said, when I first grew up, it was like everything was about tough love. Even when you went to work, it was about tough love. Oh, you cut your finger, you got to go home? Nope, come back to work, right? But that's one that's growing in corporate America is emotional intelligence. The other ones are crucial. Critical thinking, initiatives, and accountability. Critical thinking skills is what you're going to have to survive today, because not all the information is going to be given to you. Not everything you see on Wikipedia, everything you see on Google is going to be correct. You're going to have to use some type of critical thinking skills to simply say, here's how I solve this particular problem. And then you're going to, even if you say, how do I solve it, then you're going to have to say, take the initiative to do it. And then if it fails or if it succeeds, you're still going to have to show some level of accountability, right? And accountability is not a bad word, right? It's how we move forward today, how we learn. And that's through the failures and the successes. And as I get to the point of wrapping up, I just got a few things to ponder that I'd like for you to ponder today. The first one is, how do you define success? Kansas City Chiefs defined it as winning the Super Bowl. But how do you define success? And that's short-term success and long-term success. They can look different to different people. The other one is, how will you deal with adversity? And adversity could hit you. Adversity could be hitting some people in this room today, right? And how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it? How do you struggle through it? How do you get the resources you need to be successful through that adversity? But how do you deal with it? Do you get angry? Are you calm? Are you proactive? Who will define my worth and what is it, right? Who defines your worth? Some of us have issues with that. I like to say I had an issue with that early on, right? Young black kid coming out of East St. Louis, trying to define what success really looked like. Is it someone who makes a lot of money? Is it someone who lives in a big house? Is it someone who drives a Mercedes? What does success really look like? And I think over a period of time, success looks very different to people. Even to me, from when in my 20s to my 30s to my 50s, success looks very different to me today than it did back then. But who defines that for you? Why do you get up in the morning? You got to have a purpose. And that's the truth. Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you want a college degree? Why do you want the degree that you want? Did somebody tell you that you should take that degree or get that degree because you'll get a job as soon as you get out of college? That's why I got the degree that I got. I was going to be a math teacher. One of my mentors, the person that was a plant manager at GE, said, "You want to be a math teacher?" This is his exact words. Teachers don't make any money. If you want to teach, you teach in your spare time. And the very next semester, I changed my degree to industrial technology. There's some truth to that one. And my last one is, through education and knowledge, anything is possible, right? Education, and it is through systematically how you're getting it now through a university, education through doing the job, but it's that knowledge, it's through education and knowledge and understanding that you're going to be successful. Because when you're able to apply those, that means that education, you know how to learn something. Knowledge says that I can apply what I've actually learned so I can move forward. And so I leave you with that. Please strive to get as much education and as much knowledge as you possibly can. And knowledge sometimes doesn't come within these four walls. They can come from helping someone build a car. They can come from helping someone build a house. All those things you take and you put them in your pocket for a day when you're actually going to use them. And they'll help you on your path and on your journey to be successful. Any questions?
Hello, thank you. Could you give an example of where you had to demonstrate emotional intelligence in a situation that you faced?
Um, yeah, I can give you an example of that. There is the company that I currently work for today. We had an acquisition. And when we had the acquisition, I was consulting for them through the acquisition. But once the acquisition was complete, after a year, I went to work for them on their staff, and they were having problems with shipping our product because of the acquisition. And in one of the areas where they were having issues with it was in their supply chain organization. And part of the issue that the leadership team thought at the time was related to a person, right? And this person had worked for the organization 30 years, and the person's younger than I am, and he's worked for them 30 years. And so part of my job in engaging the person was really just trying to understand, truly understand the situation, but understand why he wasn't performing at a level that he could perform at, right? And so as I try to seek to understand people, I try to understand that he's someone like me, similar, from the standpoint of he was promoted through the internal ranks of the organization. And so the only knowledge that he had is what he has learned through that particular organization. So through this acquisition, he may have come off for the point that he was failing, but it wasn't that he was failing, it's just the simple fact that he didn't have the tools to cope with what was actually going on. I could have easily just simply said, you know what, he is the problem out of the first interaction or conversation with him. But I said, let me take him, and not take him, but let me mentor him over the next 6 months or 8 months or so, and let's see if the situation gets better. And so there's a point where I exercise it just dealing with that in that particular situation, right? It's not always about the situation. Sometimes it's about the person. It's about us not giving the person the tools to be successful. And you have to take the time to give that person those particular tools. And I still mentor that person today.
Could you share some of the disciplines that you've developed that have helped you handle different job changes and become more resilient? I think specifically maybe things that you picked up in the military.
There's very few things I got from the military that helped me to be disciplined. Don't take that the wrong way. My dad was in the military, so my discipline started at home, and I don't mean by beatings. My home life was very structured. My father, my stepfather, but I call him my father, I don't call him my stepfather, so my father, he was, when he would go to drills, he would work sometimes on Friday, he would work his job on Friday, have drill on Saturday. If he had to polish his shoes or wash clothes or whatever he needed to do, my dad didn't make excuses. If it was 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning, my dad would be up doing what he needed to do to be successful. And so through him, I learned hard work, discipline, accountability, just through his particular actions. And so the skills that people think you have to like what you do in the beginning. Some things you're not going to like. Some things you just have to push through, because you know if you push through it, what's on the other side of it is going to be what you're seeking and what's better for you. And so sometimes I did just put my nose down to the grind and I just grind it out. Sometimes I did sit through tough situations where and keep in mind, I've been fired from a job before, more than once. The difference about the jobs that I've been fired from in my lifetime is that I knew the firing was coming. And what I mean by that is that where I sat in the organization, I knew that in 3 months we were going to restructure the organization. I knew that we were going to have a downturn. And so my incentives to be with these companies were in the simple fact that I was given some incentive to stay. And so sometimes it's around putting yourself in positions to where you're a part of the transformation. And that way you can help lead, guide, or decide whether or not that's not what you want to do. And so I say it's around having the discipline to endure the rough and hard times is what's really going to help you get through your career. It's going to help you get through relationships. Sometimes things are not everything's a bed of roses. They're just not. Sometimes the roses have thorns and you get stuck once or twice. And you just have to remember that. Just pull the thorn out and keep moving. So hopefully that answers your question.
Why do you think that today job stability is rarer, and what are some things that we could do to combat that doesn't have to do with those soft skills you mentioned before?
I didn't quite hear the question. I'm sorry.
Why do you think that job stability is rarer in today's world, and what are some things that we can do to prepare for that don't have to do with the soft skills you already mentioned?
First off, the biggest employers, as I said, the Fortune 5, are companies that when we look at them on the surface, we simply say we don't want to work there. I'm going to use Walmart, the largest company in the U.S. People think about Walmart. We go to Walmart. We see hourly employees working at Walmart. But keep in mind, someone's the store manager at Walmart. How much do you think the store manager at Walmart makes? Throw a number out. How much? 20 what? The store manager at Walmart? I guarantee the store manager at Walmart makes more than $150,000. And I'm not exaggerating that. And they get a bonus on top of that. So some of the erosion of manufacturing has pretty much been the erosion of the middle class to some regard, right? Because a lot of those jobs were, and there's nothing against unions because I was in a union, a lot of those were union jobs. And a lot of those jobs are slowly deteriorating. And a lot of that manufacturing, even though you hear companies are reshoring, they're not reshoring everything. They're only reshoring the critical components that they actually need to build stuff for more around security to some regard. There's still a lot of products that we're still going to be procuring globally, and we'll continue to do that. Some of the hard skills that I think that someone needs is you just have to be adaptable. You have to learn in the environment that you're in. There's nothing against universities. Universities, they teach you about the career that you're entering in. Internships, they help you understand the business that you're going to be working in to some regard. But you only learn once you leave this college. And those learnings will help you survive and adapt in the environments that you're actually in. And so I would say you just have to have adaptability. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to stick it out and tough it out occasionally here or there. Because sometimes in the learnings, it's tough. I was talking to someone, and I'm going to go over just a tad bit. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago at the job I work at, and I was telling them one of my mentors here in Fort Wayne, and he's the one that I learned the most from. He asked me, when I was a manager of shop operations, he asked me, Tony, when someone would, 4 or 5 people would call off and I would say I wanted to work overtime, he said, are we going to be productive? And I would say, I didn't know. And he says, well, you should know. And I said, okay. He says, well, go back and figure it out, and let me show you how to figure it out. And so I brought the information to him, and he says, that's not right. He says, you got to take these things into account. So he sends me away, and I come back again, right? And he said, oh, yeah, that's the way it should look. And as I was telling someone the story, they said, well, Tony, the minute that I would have given, I gave him that the first time and he would have sent me back, I'm not sure I would have brought it back to him again. But when you know someone's trying to teach you something, all of a sudden you're listening to him from the ear of, hey, I'm the student and I'm here to learn. So in that, it's like, well, let me go back and try it again. And I tried it again, and then I was successful. But out of that, today, even in some of the businesses I'm helping run today, and I'm talking in operations, I'll be like, well, how do you know we're making money? And they'll say, I don't know. And I'll say, go figure it out, right? I learned that at 30. I'm talking to people that are in their 50s that don't even know if they're making money in the business they're in. So it just depends. I think we're on time, right? Is there any other questions? One more question? Okay.
My question was, what made you leave college the first year to go to the Army? Or was it just like financially? Or?
Oh, you want me to share my real story with you?
Yeah, I want that real. You feel?
Let me be real with you, right? And I'm going to share this, right? I'm going to share something personal to me in front of all of you. When I was in college at 18 years old in 1988, I had a cell phone in my car. So, but I knew, does anybody know what that means? Huh? And yeah, 1987, 88, I had a cell phone in my car. And a pager. But I've always known where I was trying to go in my life, right? And I knew that I had got caught up in a lot of things in life, you know, trying to pursue quick cash and those types of things. And so once in May of 1990, I left almost at the end of the spring semester. I drove straight from Illinois State University to a recruiter station, and I said, I want to enlist in the Army. And I said, and I want to leave as soon as possible. And he said, how about this week? And I said, no, how about next week? And I went to the Army the very next week. That's why I left college the first time. And for those 2 years, I spent those 2 years really just trying to figure out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, but I always knew I wanted an education. I always knew that I could potentially help people run their business. I knew that at a very young age. I knew that at the age of 6th grade, I would say I could be the vice president of a business, but I couldn't be the president. Some of that is just in the time that I grew up in, but I've always wanted to be a vice president in a business. So.
I got a question too. You said you were struggling, or you ain't know exactly like how to find like your worth. Like, how was you able to do that?
I'll be honest with you. I probably found my worth through mentors. I'm going to share another quick story with you, right? Antoinette will tell you that when I worked at GE, we used to have this thing at GE, and it was when Jack Welch ran GE, and they probably still do have it, but it was called the African American Forum. And so every year you would have not just minorities, but you would have the 10,000 minorities on some city, whether it be Atlanta, whether it would be DC, and it was a GE-sponsored event, and it was learning, engagement, networking, with the hierarchy, and I mean Jack Welch was there every year, and Jack Welch was the CEO at GE of that particular time, and all of his leadership team were there for at least 3 days of the conference. They're there with you for dinner, they're there with you for breakfast, and they're engaging with you, and they had classes for you. And one day Antoinette and I, one evening, we're in the elevator, and one of the guys in the elevator, his name was Roger Gasaway. He's a senior vice president of GE. And senior vice president means that this person could drop $2 million and not lose, and not realize he lost it. So we're in the elevator, and the person that was my plant manager here in Fort Wayne, his name was Phil Griffith. Phil, I like to say this term, Phil looks like me. He was a minority. And he asked me, they talk about elevator speeches, right? He asked me in the elevator who I work for, and I said, I work for Phil Griffith. He said, you work for Phil? I said, yeah. He says, Phil used to be at a plant in Louisiana before he came here. Phil, one day, how he got to Fort Wayne is that he was at odds with someone that ran one of the businesses in Louisiana, and Phil was going to leave GE. Keep in mind, Phil looked like me. And so in the elevator, Roger says to me, Phil said he was going to leave the company, and he almost made me kiss his butt. He used the other word. In that statement, said that there was a place for people that look like me at GE. And through my engagement and my encounters and the mentors that I've had, that is what has helped me to be where I am today. Through mentors who have helped and fostered my growth in corporate America, not just corporate America, just in life. That's what's helped me to find my worth. And as I said, I still was caught in, I need a Mercedes, I need a big house, I need yada, 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 or whatever the case may be. I still was caught in that in my 20s to some regard. But as I got older, I got away from all of that, right? And I started thinking about what does real success look like? What does real success look like to me? When I walk to the bank and they say, Mr. Donald, can I help you? And they really mean it. That's success to me. So, thanks everyone for your time.
Let's give him a bigger round of applause. Thank you, Tony. There's some pizza and other snacks left. Feel free to get those. Make sure you scan the QR code on one of the windows out there. Go ahead and put your email address and your name in it so that we can pull your names to see who has won some of the gifts that are on the table to the right. And some of your teachers will be providing an assignment for this. So you want to make sure you scan that QR code, answer the questions on the survey. Tony will be here for a little while. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop by and chat with him. If you have any questions for me, I'll be here as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.